So I didn't finish the shirt or the pants, so the ones that I'm wearing in this right now is just a placeholder, so when it comes to the actual judging, then I will have the correct pants, but I will be going over the construction. I've opted to, rather than just do a detail about my costume, to explain all the methods that I'm using to create them, so that when everything is finished and I do have it in person, then it'll be evident on how I made them. First thing is the hat. The hat itself is actually made out of leather. I used a pre-existing hat pattern and modified it. In order to get the color there, I had to mix several different kinds of leather paint until I was happy with it. All of the holes were punched by hand and the entire thing is hand stitched. And there is a wire sewn into the rim so that it is posable. This is a picture of me wearing the goggles when they had an elastic on them. They're 3D printed and they've been connected by a wire and epoxy, finished with a lot of sanding, sandable filler, and Bondo. The wig is a human hair lace front. I wasn't 100% happy with the makeup that I did, so day of judging it probably will be slightly different. Probably something more like what I did previously in this photo. The grills were very difficult. I had just gotten my braces off, and when I got them off, I asked for the plaster cast that they used to make my retainer. I made silicone molds and actually sculpted the grills onto the teeth and used those to make castings. The fabric used for the cape is some faux micro suede. Now would be a good time to mention the inconsistencies across the designs and JoJo color schemes, so it was very difficult to match all my fabrics and materials to one specific palette. The cape was currently being held in place with a screw, but in the final design there's a sort of green circle on there to do those and everything else. I made silicone molds using Moldstar 15, and I cast them using urethane plastic and a mix of So Strong colorants and metallic green powder to get that kind of metallic effect that you can't get from spray painting. The shirt is something that is unfortunately not done and won't be done until the in-person judging, but I actually drafted the entire thing from scratch. You can see here these are all the panels. This is just a deconstruction of the first shirt that I wore that was unfinished, except this time it's going to have boning, and that's what those little channels there are. The outer layer of fabric is going to be these scraps of leather that I had, the same that I made these armbands out of. The difficult thing is that it was scraps, so I did have to butcher some pieces together and able to make the full bodice or corset. The gloves are butchered out of some dress that I found at the Goodwill. The inside is serged, and the difficult thing is that I had to get the triangular finger thing right there, but there wasn't supposed to be any wrap around the finger, or at least it was invisible, so I solved that by using some clear elastic there. The belt was also just made with leather. It's been painted, all the holes have been punched, and the buckle and everything else has been screwed in, so it's actually screwed into the casting. The V shape of the belt was super important to me, which meant that I had to kind of come up with a wonky pattern in order for it to sit right and close in the back. You can see here it's not a straight across belt. The belt buckle is entirely sculpted by hand out of NSP Chevant clay. Then I made a 2-part silicone mold out of it. The difficult part about this was that it was not a flat back. The belt had to contour and have a slight curve like that, so I couldn't just do a single 1-part mold, so this was very difficult to figure out. Also not pictured on me at the time is the holsters. I created the pattern from scratch as well. The important thing was that little strip there had to be connected, so the entire thing is in one piece and then it has been stitched together in the back. This method of construction is actually super strong and much stronger than any sort of contact cement or glue could achieve. One of the coolest parts about this build is the actual steel ball props. Same materials and everything else. I made a 2-part silicone mold and cast it out of urethane plastic. The base ball was not modeled by me, but it was finished with the Bondo and sandable primer. And this one took me quite a few tries to get right. Again, lending to the very inconsistent yet brilliant design on a lot of JoJo art pieces, there is no one consistent pants design, so I decided to incorporate a lot of them, the main parts being, of course, the purple elements, and this fabric was extremely difficult to work with because I could not pin it at all, so I had to clip it, and I also had to use tissue paper on top of it so it would feed through my sewing machine if I wanted to top stitch anything. The pins themselves are not done, but I did just take apart what I had for a temporary wear. Are the 7-inch heels that I have. I replaced the laces with leather laces. These are the spurs. They are primarily made out of Worbla and leather that was painted to look silver. And the most important part is the spur itself, which I made out of epoxy sculpt, made a silicone putty mold of it, and then actually cast it in silicone rubber so that it would not be dangerous at the con. Anything not finished now will be shown in my build book.